Good evening. Welcome. Before we get started, I'd like to thank these fine young men. All of them I feel are very closely connected to the Holy Spirit. I'm confident that each one of you will feel as I felt it every time I hear them play. I'd also like to thank the UBFC for this opportunity to share with you in song a window into my family's experiences. You're all here tonight to celebrate the concept of hope. Hope for the future. Hope for our children. Hope for the betterment of society. And hope that the truth that we present to you tonight will be both entertaining as well as enlightening. In March of 1971, my brother, Alden Barrett, died as a result of suicide. Alden suffered from a chemical disorder known as chronic depression. My family found Alden's journal, and after reading it, they realized that Alden had an intelligence far beyond his years. The diary contained touching poems, brilliant insights to the then current affairs, including war, pollution, revolution, etc., and showed on a day-to-day basis how chronic depression works on a person's attitude. When Alden died, my family fell apart. You see, for the desperate want of a hug from each other, none of us would make the first move. Consequently, none of us were able to grieve as a family. In trying to put the pieces back together, my mother decided to write a book based on Alden's life in an effort to have something good come out of this tragedy. She felt that she could not achieve this task unaided. Mother ran across an ad in our local paper placed by Beatrice Sparks. Dr. Sparks is responsible for bringing to light the intriguing true story of a teenage girl who gets increasingly involved in the drug culture of the 60s called Go Ask Alice. My mother contacted Beatrice Sparks, who in turn took Alden's personal diary and made it into the critically acclaimed book, Jay's Journal. This non-fiction book, quote unquote, written in the form of a personal diary, is a story about an LDS teenage boy who gets increasingly involved in the occult activities. By the end of the book, Jay is possessed by a demon and commits suicide. Jay got to this point with the help of a young girl, Tina, a self-proclaimed witch who led Jay through several different occult rituals to achieve metaphysical powers. Now, Alden's diary contains 67 entries, none of which are occult related. Of those, Dr. Sparks actually used 21 entries. There are a total of 212 entries in Jay's journal. Alden's contribution to Jay's journal calculates to a little less than 10% of the total book. No entries from the original diary had anything to do with satanic practices or any of the atrocities mentioned in the published work, such as covens, demon worship, cattle mutilations, etc. When Jay's journal was published in 1978, rumors spread like wildfire. It was as if an atom bomb went off and our family was ground zero. Middle school-aged children started frequenting Alden's gravesite. Evidence of satanic rituals, such as blood on the headstone, satanic symbols trampled in the snow in front of his headstone, black and white candle stubs, and other desecrations have been found there. The headstone has been defaced. By 1985, with urgings from my mother, Beatrice Sparks took the book out of print after selling 80,000 copies. Even so, interest in the book was so great that libraries couldn't keep enough books in stock to satisfy the demand for it. So much talk about the occult was generated that the Provo Daily Herald did a week-long series of articles entitled Satan Worship in Zion, in which 2 articles related to Jay's journal were written. In the article entitled Youth's Death Leaves Questions, Warning, Alden and Jay were publicly linked in the minds of the readers. 3 weeks from the time that article came out, someone actually took Alden's headstone overnight, brought it back after doing who knows what with it, and and placed it in the opposite direction in which it was originally facing. For our family, and especially for me, it was the final insult. In 1989, Pocketbooks bought the rights to Jay's journal. It has been selling steadily from that point on. As of this date, the Provo City Library has 20 copies of Jay's journal. All copies are checked out, and there are a 60-person waiting list. Since 1990, armed with only Alden's diary, I've compiled interviews with people who actually knew Alden, talked to people who claimed to have known Jay, and wrote the book my mother had originally intended to write, called A Place in the Sun, The Truth Behind Jay's Journal. Yesterday marks the 26th anniversary of Alden's death, and still the rumors persist. It is my hope tonight that the true story of Alden Barrett's life will be shown in the public eye for the first time. The intent is not to portray Alden as a hero or my family as blameless, but rather to show that Alden is a real person with faults and shortcomings, feelings and desires, hopes and dreams. Also, my hope is that our community will begin to heal in a new and more realistic way, realizing, above all, that all of us are human. The time has come to begin a new day. Thank you for coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, A Place in the Sun.